Madhava Kunja Vihare Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadhari Jana Vallabha Girivanadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadhari Vallabha Girivanadhari Yasodarandana Vrajagana Ranjana Vrajagana Ranjana Yasodarandana Vrajagana Ranjana Ranjana Vrajagana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Ravanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Ravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Madhava Kunja Vihare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Madhava Kunja Vihare Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadhari Jana Vallabha Girivanadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadhari Jana Vallabha Girivanadhari Yasodanandana Vrajagana Ranjana Nana Vrajagana Ranjana Yasodanandana Vrajagana Ranjana Nana Vrajagana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Bhagavacharya Satarya Satashishi Mad His Divine Grace H.D. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Gauda Vaisnavinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Sakoshi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasade Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki ISKCON founder Srila Prabhupada Ki Shishi Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Vrindavan Dham Ki Mayapur Dham Ki Navadvip Dham Ki Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jamuna Mayi Ki Ganga Mayi Ki Tulsi Devi Ki Bhakta Devi Ki Shishi Radha Golokananda Ki Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So reading from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya chapter 11, and we're on verse 210. 210. So the Lord they're just, all the devotees arrived, they had having a huge feast from Jagannath. And so we're just finishing up here. It says that after everyone had finished his lunch and washed his mouth and hands, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally decorated everyone with flower garlands and sandalwood pulp. This should be our desire to receive a garland from Lord Chaitanya. This is the perfection of our sadhana. Because until you get prema, you have to go through Lord Chaitanya. First is the guru, and the closer you are to your guru, the closer you are to Lord Chaitanya. And the closer you are to Lord Chaitanya, the closer you are to Krishna. So that's our process. So after this accepting prasadam, they all went to take rest at their respective residences. And in the evening, they came to meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. At this time, Ramananda Roy also came to meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the Lord took the opportunity to introduce him to all the Vaishnavas. The great personality of Godhead, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then took all of them to the temple of Jagannath and began congregational chanting of the holy names there. After seeing the Dupta Artik of the Lord, they all began congregational chanting. Then the Padiksha, the superintendent of the temple, came and offered flower garlands and sandalwood pulp to everyone. So everybody's really decorated. You know. 4 parties were then distributed in 4 directions to perform Sankirtan. And in the middle of them, the Lord himself, known as the son of Mother Sachti, began to dance. In the 4 groups, there were 8 mridangas, 32 cymbals. All together, they began to vibrate the transcendental sound, and everyone said, "Very good, very good." When the tumultuous vibration of Sankirtan resounded, all good fortune immediately awakened, and the sound penetrated the whole universe through the 14 planetary systems. If I can get a tissue somewhere, there's a box of tissue. Maybe there's. Well, there's none in the Pujari room? Thank you. When the congregational chanting began, ecstatic love immediately overflooded everything, and all the residents of Jagannath Puri came running. Thank you. Everyone was astonished to see such a performance of Sankirtan, and they all agreed that never before had Kirtan been so performed and ecstatic love of God so exhibited. At this time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu circumambulated the temple of Jagannath and continuously danced about the whole area. As the circumambulation was performed, 4 kirtan parties sang in front, and in the rear When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fell down to the ground, Sri Nityananda Roy Prabhu lifted him up. So, this circumambulation, one time, the pastimes, I believe it's in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, but Dvaita Acharya came to see Lord Chaitanya. So Lord was asking him, well, what were you doing? Where were you? What's going, just typically what, when associates say, where are you coming from? How's it going? What have you been doing? And Dvaita Acharya said that I've been circumambulating the temple, Jagannath, temple, chanting and chanting his rounds. And then the Lord said he never circumambulates the temple while he can have darshan of the deities. He only circumambulates it when the curtains are closed, when there's no able to see the Lord. So, and of course in the purport Bhakti, it is in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, because Bhakti Siddhanta breaks down the chanting is circumambulating, because there's sun god, you circumambulate like 7 times. You do Ganesh like 3 times. We do Tulsi 3 times. And then around the temple, when you circumambulate, you should do at least 4 times, circumambulate the temple. So he gets into a little more technical aspects of it. It says if you just come and you go around 1 time and leave, you're just like, maybe you're just in a hurry or something. He says that you lose all your accumulated pious credits. That's like vote of goodness stuff, So it hasn't really have a big impact on devotional service, but ultimately, it doesn't matter how much, for millions of lifetimes, how much cumulative pious credits one has accumulated. That still doesn't, you can't cash that in for devotional service. It's not how much pious credits one has, how much austerity one has performed. These are not prerequisites for devotional service. They help one, of course, in the Vaidhi platform, the awe and reverence. But for spontaneous devotional service, it's only mercy that one receives. And we discussed that process, that one has to satisfy the Vaishnavas. And in that process, that one can come and satisfy Lord Chaitanya. And only through Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda are we even at the position we're at right now. Because this has been handed down through the disciplic succession, starting from them. So in this way, he's described that he takes every opportunity to see the Lord when he can see them. Okay, so while kirtan was going on, there was a transformation of ecstatic love and much tears, jubilation, trembling, perspiration, and deep resounding in the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Upon seeing this transformation, all the people present became very much astonished. The tears from the eyes of the Lord came out with great force, like water from a syringe. Indeed, all the people surrounded him were moistened by his tears. That's that's a lot. After circumambulating the temple, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for some time remained at the rear of the temple and continued his Sankirtan. On all 4 sides, the 4 Sankirtan groups chanted very loudly, and in the middle, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced, jumping high. After dancing for a long time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became still and ordered 4 great personalities to begin to dance. And one group, Nityananda Prabhu, began to dance. And another group, Advaita Acharya, began to dance. Prakeshwari Pandit began to dance in another group. And yet another group, Srivas Thakur, began to dance. While this dancing was going on, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu watched them and performed a miracle. These are all four senior people, and one senior devotees in each one of these groups. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stood in the middle of the dancers, and all the dancers in all directions perceived that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was looking at them. Wanting to see the dancing of the four great personalities, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited this miracle of seeing everyone simultaneously. Now remember, they're all on four sides of the temple, front, back, all around, and then everyone's seeing Lord Chaitanya. Everyone who saw Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could understand that he was performing a miracle, but they did not know how it was that he could see on all four sides. In his own pastimes in Vrindavan, when Krishna used to eat on the bank of the Yamuna and sit in the center of his friends, every one of the cowherd boys would perceive that Krishna was looking at him. In the same way, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu observed the dancing, everyone saw that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was facing him. When someone came nearby while dancing, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would tightly embrace him. Upon seeing the great dancing, great love, and great sankirtan, all the people of Jagannath Puri floated in an ecstatic ocean of love. Hearing the greatest of Sankirtan, King Prataparuja went up to the top of his palace and watched the performance with his personal associates. The king was very much astonished to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's kirtan, and the king's anxiety to meet him increased unlimitedly. After the Sankirtan ended, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu watched the offering of flowers to the Lord Jagannath deity. Then he and all the Vaishnavas returned to their residence. The superintendent of the temple then brought large quantities of prasadam, which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally distributed to all the devotees. So it started prasadam, remember? Then they went to the temple, big celebration. They go back, and there's more prasadam. Finally, they all departed to rest in bed. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the son of Sachimata, performed his pastimes. As long as the devotees remained in Jagannath Puri, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the pastimes of Sankirtan were performed with great jubilation every day. In this way, I have explained the Lord's pastime of Sankirtan, and I bless everyone with this benediction. By listening to this description, one will surely become a servant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishnadas, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, following in their footsteps. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta Purports of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, 11th chapter, describing the Beta Kirtan pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, chapter 12, the cleansing of the Gundika temple. Gundika temple is located down the road from Jagannath temple. It's a separate temple. And it's not like a regular road. I mean, if you see it on pictures, it's a super wide avenue. I mean, it's like, a 3-lane highway, interstate, but it's all just kind of paved over in a sense that from one end to the other. That's how it's huge wide. Of course, during Ratha Yatra, it's slam full of people. I mean, I don't know how many population that increases, maybe 1 million or something. It's just, how many? Could be, yeah. I mean, it's huge, incalculable. I mean, I'm sorry? Yeah, that's why it's so wide to accommodate, and then the buildings and everything. It's super wide. Super wide. I don't know how far wide. Yeah. If that far, that might be a little stretch there, but it doesn't, you could walk it. I mean, we've walked it. Okay, so let's read the preview of this chapter. In his Amrita Prabha Bhashya, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur summarizes this chapter as follows. The king of Orissa, Maharaj Prataparuja, tried his best to see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Nityananda Prabhu and the other devotees informed the Lord about the king's desire, but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would not agree to see him. This is he see his struggle to see the Lord. And this is our own situation. We can relate to this because we have to have the same desire that King Prataparuja had in order to meet the Lord. We have to have that increased. It's greed. It's what it takes. It has to, this is not about what we just mentioned earlier. No amount of austerity is going to get it. No matter of pious activity is going to get it. This greed, this spontaneous devotion. At that time, Sri Nityananda Prabhu devised a plan, and he sent a piece of the Lord's outward garment to the king. The next day, when Ramananda Roy again entreated Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to see the king, the Lord, denying the request, asked Ramananda Roy to bring the king's son before him. The prince visited the Lord dressed like a Vaishnava, and this awakened remembrance of Krishna. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu delivered the son of Maharaj Prataparudra. I mean, here again, this idea of what is a Vaishnava dress, and for us, it's primarily what Bengalis wore at that time. Then again, it's not, you have to actually, the mercy of the Lord doesn't really depend on a particular dress. I'm sorry? Yeah. And what they describe here is a Vaishnava, but it's particularly what you can see what Bengalis wore during that period. And so the closer you get to the Lord, you adjusted things, you see. He changed his way he dressed in order to approach the Lord. And we've kind of done that in a sense. And of course there's been pushback and different things, but you can look at, when you go on the altar, on that side of the rail, people dress a particular way. And men are expected to dress a particular way. Women dress a particular way. And sometimes they even cover their head on that side of the railing. But as you get on this side of the railing, things start to change a little bit. And as you walk out the door of the temple, things start changing a little bit. And as you go home, things start changing a little bit. See, and I'm just as guilty as anybody else, right? So the further away you get, you see things change naturally in everybody's lives. So it does have, if it has no value, of course there's a big push now is, what difference does it make what you wear on the altar? You can wear anything on the altar. It really doesn't matter, so there's this whole, as part of the whole, the pushback of, is there really a Vaishnava dress? Okay, so let me find out where I was at. Okay, I can remember this. Okay, after this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu washed the Gandhika temple before the Ratha Yatra took place. He then took his bath at Indrajuma Lake and partook of prasadam in the garden nearby. While Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu washed the temple of Gandhika, a Gaudiya Vaishnava washed the lotus feet of the Lord and drank the water. This incident is very significant, for it awoke within the devotee ecstatic love. Then the son of Dvaita Prabhu, named Gopal, fainted during kirtan, and when he did not come to his senses, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu favored him by awakening him. There are also some humorous talks between Nityananda Prabhu and Advaita Prabhu during prasadam. Advaita Prabhu said that Nityananda Prabhu was unknown to anyone, and that it was not the duty of a householder, Brahmin, to accept dinner with a person unknown in society. In answer to this humorous statement, Sri Nityananda Prabhu replied that Advaitacharya was a monist, and that one could not know how his mind could be turned by eating with such an impersonalist. The conversation of these two Prabhus, Nityananda Prabhu and Advaita Prabhu, carried a deep meaning that only an intelligent man can understand. After all the Vaishnavas finished their luncheon, Swarup Damodar and the others took their prasadam within the room. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took great pleasure when he saw the Jagannath deity after the period of the deity's retirement. At that time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was accompanied by all the devotees, and all of them were very pleased. Okay. So on that incident where that one devotee washed Lord Chaitanya's feet, Lord Chaitanya showed some internally pleased, but externally he showed displeasure. And then he had called up, and complained about what had happened, and had the devotee removed. So we will read about that. Gundicha, all right. Gundika. Yeah. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Gundicha. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu washed and cleansed the Gundicha temple with his devotees and associates. In this way, he made it as cool and bright as his own heart. And thus, he made the temple a befitting place for the Lord Shri Krishna to sit. And this process also reflects how we should clean our hearts, this cleaning of the Gundicha temple. Thank God it's not a requirement to sing Sanskrit properly. That's also not a prerequisite, because I'd really be in big trouble. All glories to Gaura Chandra, all glories to Nityananda, all glories to Advaita Acharya, and all glories to all the devotees of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to the devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, headed by Srivas Thakur. I beg their power so that I can properly describe Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned from his South Indian tour, Maharaj Prataparudra, the king of Orissa, became very anxious to meet him. The king sent a letter from his capital, Kataka, to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, entreating him to obtain the Lord's permission so that he could go and see him. Replying to the king's letter, the Bhattacharya wrote that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had not given his permission. After this, the king wrote him another letter. We have to be persistent. In this letter, the king requested Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya please appeal to all the devotees associated with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and submit this petition to them on my behalf. So it requires the association of Vaishnavas. If all the devotees associated with the Lord are favorable disposed towards me, they could submit my petition at the lotus feet of the Lord. I mean, this analogy is given often. If you want to meet, say, the governor of North Carolina or the president of the United States, you have a better chance if you make friends with a relative or his wife. Then that meeting will very easily take place. Or if you want to meet someone, some person has a dog, you be friendly with their dog first, and then you can meet. It's easier to meet that person. You break the ice in a sense, and you can progress further. By the mercy of all the devotees, one can attain the shelter of lotus feet of the Lord. Without his mercy, my kingdom does not appeal to me. If Gaurahari, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, did not show mercy to me, will not show mercy to me, I shall give up my kingdom, become a mendicant, and beg from door to door. It's coming like Arjuna. When the Bhattacharya received this letter, he became very anxious. He then took the letter and went to the devotees of the Lord. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya met with all the devotees and described the king's wishes. Then he presented the letter to all of them for inspection. Upon reading the letter, everyone was astonished to see that King Prataparutta had so much devotion for the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The devotees gave their opinion and said, "The Lord will never meet the king, and if we request him to do so, the Lord would surely feel very unhappy." Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya then said, we shall go at once again to the Lord, but we shall not request him to meet the king. Rather, we shall simply describe the good behavior of the king." So they have a strategy here. Having thus reached a decision, they all went to the place of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There, although ready to speak, they could not even utter a word. The Lord already knows what's going on. He's in all their hearts. After they arrived at Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's place, the Lord, seeing them, said, "What have you come here to say? I see that you want to say something, but you do not speak. What is the reason?" Nityananda Prabhu then said, "We want to tell you something. Although we cannot stay without speaking, we are still very much afraid to speak. We want to submit before you something that may or may not be fitting. The matter is this: unless he sees you, the king of Orissa will become a mendicant." Nityananda Prabhu continued, "The king has decided to become a mendicant and accept the sign of a mendicant by wearing an ivory earring. He does not want to enjoy his kingdom without seeing the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu." Purport: in India, there is still a class of professional mendicants who are very much like the gypsies of Western countries. They know some magical art and mystical processes, and their business is to beg from door to door, sometimes pleading and sometimes threatening. Such mendicants are sometimes called yogis and sometimes Kanapata yogis. The word Kanapata refers to one who has put a hole in his ear to wear an earring made of ivory. Maharaj Prataparutta was so depressed by not getting to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he decided to become a yogi, to become such a yogi. Ordinarily, men think that a yogi must have an ivory earring in his ear, but this is not the sign of a real yogi. Maharaj Prataparutta also thought that to become a mendicant yogi, one must wear such an earring. So this is really all external. This is making a show. 21. Nityananda Prabhu, the king, also expressed his desire to see the moon-like face of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to his eyes full satisfaction. He would like to raise the lotus feet of the Lord to his heart. Hearing all these statements, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mind was certainly softened, but externally, he wished to speak some harsh words. So even though there's this, even the Lord has some external things, so some of these details are very important, but they're just a means to the end. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "I can understand that you all desire to take me to Kataka to see the king." Purport: Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is naturally the reservoir of all kindness, and as soon as he heard the statement made by the king, his heart immediately softened. Thus the Lord was ready to go see the king even at Kataka. He did not even consider allowing the king to come from Kataka to Jagannath Puri to see him. It is significant that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so kind that he was ready to go see the king at Kataka. Apparently, it was never expected that the king wanted to see the Lord at his place. But by way of being externally harsh, the Lord indicated that if all the devotees so desired, he would go to Kataka to see the king. So here in this harsh mood here, 24, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, what to speak of spiritual advancement? All the people will blaspheme me. And what to speak of all people? Damodar will chastise me. I shall not meet the king at the request of all the devotees, but I shall do so if Damodar will give his permission. Purport. From the spiritual point of view, a sannyasi is strictly forbidden to see materialistic people, especially a king who is always engaged in counting pounds, shillings, and pence. Indeed, the meeting between a sannyasi and a king is always considered abominable. A sannyasi is always subject to public criticism, and a small fault on his part is taken seriously by the public. People actually expect a sannyasi to preach and not to take part in any social, political matters. If a sannyasi is subject to public criticism, his preaching will not be fruitful. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu specifically wanted to avoid such criticism so that his preaching work would not be hampered. It so happened that while the Lord was talking to his disciples at that time, the devotee Damodar Pandit was present. This Damodar Pandit was a very faithful devotee and a staunch lover of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Whenever there was anything that might touch or taint the character of Lord, Damodar Pandit would immediately point it out, not even considering the exalted position of the Lord. It is sometimes said that fools rush in where angels dare not. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to point out Damodar Pandit's foolishness in coming forward to criticize the Lord. This is why the Lord stated that if Damodar Pandit would give him permission, he would go see the king. There was deep meaning in this statement, for it is a warning that Damodar should not dare criticize the Lord anymore, for it was not befitting the position of a devotee. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was considered the guide and spiritual master of all devotees living with him. Damodar Pandit was one of them, and the Lord rendered Damodar Pandit a special favor by warning him to avoid criticizing him any further. A devotee or disciple should never attempt to criticize the Lord or his representative, the spiritual master. This is very, very good advice, even though we see that happening. We talk about the dress being external, but for a sannyasi, it's a principle. It's not a detail. We often hear that the dress, Vaishnava, these are details. But the Lord says, and Prabhupada makes it very clear, as it's explained here, that for a sannyasi, one who's taken sannyas, these things aren't details, they're principles, these external, what we consider external. So 26. Damodar immediately replied, my Lord, you are fully independent, Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since everything is known to you, you know what is permissible and what is not permissible. I am merely an insignificant jiva, so what power do I have to give directions to you? By your own personal choice, you will meet the king. I shall see it. 28. The king was very much attached to you. The king is very much attached to you, and you are feeling affection and love towards him. Thus I can understand that by virtue of the king's affection for you, you will touch him. Although you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you are completely independent. Still, you are dependent on the love and affection of your devotees. That is your nature. Nityananda Prabhu then said, who is there in the three worlds who can ask you to see the king? Still, isn't it the nature of an attached man to give up his life if he does not attain his desired object? For instance, some of the wives of the Brahmins who were performing sacrifices gave up their lives in the presence of their husbands for the sake of Krishna. Purport. This refers to the day Lord Sri Krishna and his cowherd boys and flocks of animals were present in the pasturing grounds near Mathura. At that time, the cowherd boys, being a little hungry, requested food, and Lord Krishna asked him to go to the Brahmins who were engaged nearby in performing yagna, or sacrifice, and to get some food from that yagna. Being so ordered by the Lord, all the cowherd boys went to the Brahmins and asked them for food, but they were denied. After this, the cowherd boy begged food from the wives of the Brahmins. All these wives were very much devoted to Lord Krishna in spontaneous love. And as soon as they heard the request of the cowherd boys and understood that Krishna wanted some food, they immediately left the place of sacrifice. They were very much chastised for this by their husbands, and they were ready to give up their lives for the nature of a pure devotee. It is the nature of a pure devotee to sacrifice his life for the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So it talks about, obviously their husbands weren't happy that they were taking this prasadam to them, but here, similar to the gopis, they were willing to abandon everything, even a public opinion, or what anybody thought about them. And this was their good fortune. This is another example of spontaneous devotion. 33. Nityananda Prabhu then submitted one request for the Lord's consideration. There is a way, he suggested, by which you need not meet the king, which would enable the king to continue living. If you, out of your mercy, send one of your outer garments to the king would live hoping to see you sometime in the future. Purport. Sri Nityananda Prabhu was thus very tactfully suggesting that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu give a piece of his old clothing to the king. Even though the king was not to meet the Lord, the king would then be pacified by receiving such a cloth. The king was very anxious to see the Lord, yet it was not possible for the Lord to see him. Just to resolve the situation, Nityananda Prabhu suggested that the Lord send an old piece of clothing. Thus the king would understand that the Lord was showing mercy to him. The king would then not do anything drastic, like giving up his life or becoming a mendicant. The Lord said, since you are all very learned personalities, whatever you decide, I shall accept. Lord Nityananda then obtained an external garment used by the Lord by requesting it from Govinda. Thus, Nityananda Prabhu delivered the old cloth into the care of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya sent it to the king. 38. When the king received the old cloth, he began to worship it exactly as he would worship the Lord personally. Purport. This should do it right here. This is also the conclusion of the Vedic conjunctions. Since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the absolute truth, everything in relation to him is on the same platform. The king had great affection for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and although he did not see the Lord, he had nonetheless already attained the conclusion of devotional service. Immediately upon receiving the cloth from Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, the king began to worship it, accepting it as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Lord's clothing, bedding, slippers, and everything required as an ordinary necessity are all transformations of Sesha. Well, we got a minute early today. All glories of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. $38.
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Enam Kanvandam Maravindadalayataksham Varhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandar Bhagom Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Asa Sakalem Priya Priti Manti Vasyan Dipan Dikayanti Jiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami
Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Ashtacha Distarine Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Ashtacha Disata Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasade Gaura Bhaktavinda Hey Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasade Gaura Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasade Gaura Bhaktavinda Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasade Gaura Bhaktavinda Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Hari Bol Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Golokananda Radha Golokananda Radhe. Jaya Radha Golokananda Radha Golokananda Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Haribo! Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Jaya Vishnu. Shrimad. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki.
Yeah.
Shri Radha Golokananda ki. Samdeva Kananda ki. Gaura Premanandi.
Chaityadarpanamarjanam Bhavamahadavaki Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pitani Amita Smaranena Kala Etadrishita Vakripa Bhagavan Mamapi Dordaiva Midrishamiha Janina Nuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahishuna Amani Namanadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavidam va jagadishakamaye mama janmani janmani ishvare bhavadad bhaktir hoitaki twai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitamam Vishame Bhavam Buddha Kripayata Vabada Pankaja Stita Duli Shadrashim Vachintaya Nayanam Galadashu Daraya Varanam Gad Gadaridaya Gira Pulakarnishitam Vabhukada Tavanama Grahane Bhavishyati Yuga Yatam Namishena Chakshusha Pravashayatam Shunayatam Jagat Sarvam Govindam Virahena Me Ashlisha Padamratam Manastumam Adarshanam Marmahata Karotuva Yatatatava Vidadatu Lampato Mat Prananatas Sa Eva Napara. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw on the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditioned.